Today's date is August the 30th, 1997. We're in Columbus, Ohio with the 12th Armored Division. My name is Jake Fortenberry. This is Bob Huntley. Sir, if you can start off and just tell us where you were born and what your dad did for a living.
No, I was born in the big city of Marion, Ohio, about 16,000 back then.
What'd your dad do while you were growing up?
Worked at the Marion Power Shovel, the biggest thing that Marion had. In fact, they're just getting ready to dissolve it now after all these years.
And what type of job was that?
They built drag lines. Well, back then they didn't, but they developed into coal drag lines and so forth. Back when he started, it was the Marion Steam Shovel. And when they used to have the southern people from southern Ohio come up, if they hollered Marion, Ohio, nobody moved. But if they hollered Marion Steam Shovel, the train would empty, because that's where they all migrated to. They were all Southern Hills people, and that was the big end of that. That's about what they had there for everybody.
What do you remember about growing up in the Depression era?
37 cents an hour, that's all I ever heard. And we lived in town till I was 8 years old, and then we moved to a place, Larue, Ohio. Right now it's about 950 people, only out on a farm. And that's where I grew up. In fact, I was still there when I went to service.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
Right now I have 4, but there was a family of 5 girls and me. I was the oldest. It's hell. It is.
I could understand that. I've got one sister. So you went to high school, and then when did you join the military?
I was out about 6 months on farm and deferment, and it didn't last quite that long. I went in 44 of December, went to Fort Knox.
Are you behind any sweethearts or girlfriends?
Oh, I had one, I thought. I married her, and then it kind of dissolved.
Was that because of the military or during the military?
Well, there's a lot of things that shouldn't be said, and sometimes you really get turned on about it. I got married on furlough. You know, one of them stupid kid things. And right now I'd say you'd never do it that way, but her and her mother seemed to think that I was going to not make it, and they was going to be $10,000 richer. And it never got too much better after I came home, but we had 2 children. I had a son and I had a daughter. I still talk to the daughter off and on, but the son, he lives in the same town I lived there. I've seen him twice in about the last 5 years, probably.
So, how was basic there at Fort Knox?
Like any kid, I enjoyed it. Got kind of muddy. Of course, any tank outfit is muddy. They seem to thrive in the mud. But Fort Knox was, in fact, my recommendation that any kid, if he isn't crippled or, badly, I think they should serve in the military, including boys and girls. I think we would have better children nowadays. It's a good thing to get away from home.
Yes, it is. I spent 4 years in. That's how I'm paying for college right now.
But I think I grew up in the Army.
So is there anything in particular you remember about basic that was just difficult, or who you're
No, I like I said, I had a good time. I've drove all my life. I've been driving since I was 14, and I'm 72. I drove grain truck when I was 14, and that's all I ever did in the Army was drive. I drove anything from a tank. About the only thing I haven't driven is a gas truck or a wrecker or something like that. I've drove any kind of a truck that you can possibly think of. It just seemed like I was a driver. I've drove mail truck, I've drove message center. That's how I got to really see Japan when it was all over. I drove message center and mail truck.
So how did you, from basic, where'd you go from Fort Knox?
When I left there, I went home for 13 days, got married, and went to Camp Ord, or Fort Ord. South Pacific, here I come.
And so you were in the 44th?
Mm-hmm. I went to the 44th. They had just moved into rest camp after they'd all got together. And war wasn't over yet because I don't know how many tons of gravel I scooped. But every time we went out to get gravel and they'd turn the lights on in the crane, they'd shoot the poor devil out. Then we'd end up scooping it on and scooping it off. But we filled all the mud holes. And there was a lot of them in the Philippines. But it was just a shame. It just seemed like every night they shot somebody out of that crane.
Did you, so you never spent any time at Camp Campbell or at Camp Barber?
No, no.
You just went straight to the Pacific Theater?
Mm-hmm. Part of this bunch, it went through Knott's, part of them went through Campbell, and I think some of them down in Missouri or someplace.
Yeah, Linwood. I've talked to a couple of those gentlemen.
But the only reason that I really stay in touch with the 12th is everybody does it. I even belong to the first CAV for knowledge. You use every way in the world to catch up with buddies. And that's something you never forget.
So how long were you in the Philippines? Were they still in combat when you got there?
Like I said, I helped unload the tanks and half-tracks and so forth. And then I was automatically thrown into a flame platoon. We were getting lined up, retraining for invasion, and I was put in the flame platoon. It was a special little company all its own. And it was scary to death to get in them tanks because there was nothing but tanks inside of that turret. And they claimed if you didn't turn them on by the numbers, you didn't need to worry about nothing else. Because that napalm would take you right with it. And we were lined up to be something like the first wave in, which we probably wouldn't be sitting here. But kids, like I said, kids 18, 19 years old don't get scared. They shoot you, you shoot back. Probably a good thing.
Youth and lack of fear is a good thing in the military.
Yeah, and that's what you're taught. I mean, you're just taught that. I suppose that's why the Marines are so tough. They're just trained a lot harder than we were. Of course, we were a fast trained deal. I went in there in the last of January or February, and by May I was on my way. We was taught everything quick in a hurry.
So you said you did some occupation duty in Japan?
Mm-hmm.
Did you stop anywhere in between the Philippines and Japan, or just go straight?
No, we slowed down when we came to Okinawa because we about lost an LST that hit a landmine with tanks on it. But the good Lord was willing, and he got them into Okinawa. In fact, I talked to a Navy man up here yesterday, and he was in that same convoy. He came with some of the 12th in here, and he was in the same convoy. The only thing is whether he was one that took the LST to Okinawa or what, but he spent a little while in Okinawa when we went on to Yokohama. And that was something to see. No resistance whatsoever, but the tank I was in, there was a dummy in there, had the machine guns loaded, just waiting for somebody to make a miscue. And he'd have killed him.
So the Japanese people didn't resist?
No, the only thing we saw was police. They was carrying a few weapons, pistols, and that was just about it. All had swords. But all they did was keep the people back. But it was, I'd hate to see that. I won't mention the guy's name. We've never found him. But that guy was looking for trouble. He'd had a brother killed. And there's no doubt in my mind he'd have cleaned house. You never know.
So how was the occupation there in Japan?
I saw a lot of Japanese killed, which I don't believe in. I don't like a Jap for what they've done. But people that had had relatives killed used every excuse in the world to annihilate them. I used to haul, when I didn't haul mail, well, I run message center for quite a while, so it got cold. And then I hunted something warmer, which was a 3/4 mail truck. And, but we could see them haul them every morning out of the bay with a rope. They'd lasso them out of the water. But in those warehouses, they'd run them to the end of the pier and shoot them. And I suppose I shouldn't be telling things like that, but
It's history, it's what
that's
happened.
the way it was. And they hauled them away in bicycles with baskets. 3-wheelers. It's not good, but like I said, I've been back to the Philippines twice for the 36th and the 40th reunions. I'd like to went back for the 50th, but they didn't recommend it. And I had a good time. The people that we knew still loved us. I don't know what it would be like now. But we went back, the first time we went back, it was 12 of us, plus our families, 29 altogether. And close to that many that was 81, and in 85 we went back, and the Chinese, Filipinos, they welcomed you they threw parties that you couldn't believe. The last time we was there, we laid wreaths at their cemetery, but they had a sign up, no Japs allowed. And I have a feeling if they caught one in there, he wouldn't make it back. But I'm strictly against the Japs taking over the Philippines, and I'm strictly against them taking over U.S. I think U.S. ought to have a stronger back.
Is there anything besides, like you mentioned, the bodies in the bay, or anything else that stood out? Did you meet anybody in particular that was especially friendly, or anything you remember?
Oh, a lot of them were friendly. Yeah, they did nothing to us, but the only thing is, just like they're disposing of their body waste, they would not use the wooden shacks that they put up. They carried a granny rag, as they called it, and they filled it. They took it home and dumped it in a well. They hauled it out in their honey wagons. And they growed crops like you couldn't believe. In fact, one day I was coming back from Message Center, and I loved green onions, and I seen these big green onions that were probably 2 or 3 inches across, which you can't believe. And the dirt was like cotton. I took them back to the cook that I was real acquainted with, old Sam Scheibel from, I think, up around Boston someplace. And, of course, he chopped them up, and some of the guys heard where I got them, and they just went completely nuts. They didn't want no part of them. But to me, there was nothing wrong with them. I mean, I was a farmer long enough to know you have to have dirt. Mm-hmm. And we used manure. What the heck? In fact, we got a battle down home now where the chicken farms are coming in from Germany, and people are fighting them. I wouldn't want them. My farm used to be down there, and I sold it 5 years ago. You couldn't get nothing out of it now. But we've had that same problem with the Japanese, as far as I'm concerned. I just, once you see them, you don't love them.
That's all I can really think of to ask you. If there's anything else you can remember that was interesting.
Nothing you know what I mean? Like I said, kids don't pay attention to nothing. I mean, we didn't seem to have no fear, except when. Just like I said, when we scooping gravel, now we run. We didn't even have a gun. All we had was a hunting knife or a bayonet. And that don't leave you too much to fight with.
Not when he's got a rifle.
The truck driver, he carried a rifle. Probably the crane operator, but that was back in the hills. And we knew enough to run.
Were they just pockets of resistance that was doing it?
I imagine, just like the ones, they found years and years afterwards. I grew up with guns. I still got a halfway decent arsenal. I got about 6 or 7 guns. And I'm against the government ever trying to take them away from me. But my dad taught even the girls, taught them how to shoot. It was just something you grew up with. You didn't think nothing about it. In basic, I had a buddy from Brooklyn. He could take a gun apart, but he couldn't get it back together. And that was my Sunday night chore when I came in off a pass. Put it together. This is probably nothing, but in gunnery school, they told us when they handed out the rifles to leave the trigger mechanism alone till they told us to clean them. Well, mine got kind of sluggish with all the mud in it, so I took it apart and cleaned it. It's one of the few things that I did that I'm supposed to not do, but when it come time to clean them, this gunnery sergeant, I can't think of his name anymore, he was quite a guy. He came to me and he said, "Where's the Cosmoline at?" I said, "I took it out." He said, "I didn't tell you to." And I said, "Well, I was taught you didn't leave mud in a rifle." And then he had me a smart-ass answer, you know, for a kid to... In fact, I told him one day out on the gunnery range, he informed me to clean out a tank when I shot in the morning and was just roving around for the trucks to come back and pick us up at night. And he informed me I was to get in that tank that he was in and clean all the brass out. And I told him where he could go. I washed 6 trucks that night. But he was a good gunnery sergeant. He just told me I wasn't supposed to clean that trigger housing until he told him so. And like I said, I have a tendency to do things like that. But, and I got in a fight one night, and I still don't know how the first sergeant ever found it out, but by the time the guy hit the floor and I threw it over my shoulder, I used to like to wrestle a lot, and he just picked me and the guy I thought he was still laying on the floor, and we cleared beer bottles for about 4 hours that night.
Yeah. So how long did you stay in Japan?
I left in June, or last of May. I was in replacement camp for 30 days. They lost my records. And I got an early discharge. I served under General French in Yokohama. In fact, I was in his headquarters. This is when the 44th was broke up into the 95th, and they sent me there, and they found out I could teletype, and I was given a Jeep, but the lieutenant wouldn't let me drive it, and they found out I could peck out a typewriter with 2 fingers. So they stuck me in message center, and French let it be known that they was going to degrade him a rank because he'd made it in the field. And he got mad and he said, "I'll give anybody a discharge that's got any kind of proof." And I wanted to get back home to farming and that wife I married. So I got right in line. As soon as I got my papers, I was on my way. I got home in June, last of June of 46. And that's about the...
What do you remember about coming home? I mean, I know it was later, it wasn't coming home straight after the war. What was the reception like?
There was no reception. The only reception I got is when I left Atterbury, Indiana. I took my pocket knife out and cut my tie in about as many small pieces as I could find. And on the train, the MP gave me hell for cutting my tie up. He said, "You know you're still in the Army." And I said, "I got a discharge." He said, "I don't want no smart remarks. Till you get out of that uniform, you're still in the Army." And as you can see, I don't like ties. I wear them very, very seldom. But I just come home and went to work. The crops were planted, but they had to be cultivated and everything. And my wife and my dad bought a farm while I was in. They bought it in March, and I got out in June. I lived there up until 5 years ago. And in the meantime, I divorced the first one and got married another time. I've been married now for 28 years the second time.
That's all I think of. Do you got anything, Julie?
That's about it. Wherever there's a reunion, I have a good time.
I hear
We've been
that.
having a 44 since '73. 12 the first time we got together.
Yeah, well, I certainly appreciate it, Rob. I mean, you're the first person I've talked to that had anything to do with the occupation in Japan. A couple others from before.
I drove a truck. Well, when I went in the Army, I drank milk. Then I graduated to coffee. And then one night I got dry, and I graduated to beer. And I got to be a drunk. And when I left, I quit. Right now. I couldn't see coming home a drunk. Some guys said they couldn't, but I did. And, I drank a little between women. And I quit again. And I can't drink now if I had to because I take too many drugs. I take about 6 or 7 pills a day, so. But we used to steal a lot of 4 cases of beer. We used to fill the front of the center of a 6-by. Each guy'd steal 4 cases. I pulled many a guy's guard duty, even not as a driver, but as a guard, long enough to go steal 4 cases. We guarded the quartermaster. And I don't suppose you'd call it, we just kind of liberated it.
Acquired.
Yeah.
That's what we used in the Army nowadays.
They gave us 1 or 2 cases of beer and a case of pop a week. But that didn't last long. And then we had a good lieutenant, and I graduated to a little bit of whiskey after I got limbered up. But I came home sober. And that's the way my life's been pretty much. I've worked all my life. I spent 34 years at Whirlpool. That's what they tell me happened to my ankles driving a forklift for 34 years. Like I said, that's all I've ever done is drive. And in fact, that's what I done this morning before I came back here. I got a skid loader and I tore it up, and I was rebuilding it again this morning. I can't sit still.
Hey, that's a good way to be.
And I'm building me a new shop. At 72, my wife says I'm crazy.
My grandpa was 74. When he was 72, he built a new house, a new barn, and just a new tractor.
In 73, I took a house and cut it down and made it a 1-story with a chainsaw. It went from a 24 by 26 house to a 96-foot with a 3-bay garage on it. And I done it with me and my father-in-law. So I guess I'm handy with my hands, and I can wire, I can plumb, I can lay brick.
Did you ever use any of that while you was in the Army?
No, I did do nothing but drive. As soon as I hit Yokohama, I was assigned to a message center Jeep. And I saw all the back end of Japan. All the ones we was attached to, I run message center every day, 7 days a week. Rain, shine, or anything else. One time they took 6 trucks to pull me up to the top of the hill. The Jeep couldn't make it, and the truck couldn't pull me back up, so they lined them up and winched me.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
But and I got my first haircut in Japan, and that shows you how stupid kids can be. We each sat with a pocket knife open in our pockets with our hand on it while the guy cut our hair and shaved us.
A little bit paranoid, were you?
No, you don't think about something like that. He was a conquered enemy, and in fact, we bought kimonos off of him that night. But that's what I say. I used to say I wouldn't take $10,000 for the fun I have, and I wouldn't take $10,000 to go back in again, but it'd be a little higher now. But I took each day as it come, and I pulled guard duty one night in all the time I was in. I was called to pull guard duty. they started down and they told us we couldn't go to town unless we learned our general orders. And so I sat down and learned them. And they lined us up for guard duty, and they got down about half a dozen, asking them if they knew their general orders, and come to me, and I said, yes, sir. I thought, my God, what'll I do if he asks me and I can't repeat it? He didn't ask me. I turned out to be a colonel's orderly with a dirty uniform, and you know what he done with me. He sent me back to camp for the day, and it was too late to do anything, so the first sergeant put me under the barracks and said, stay there. I do not want you out of there before 4 o'clock. And like I said, that's just the way. If you was told to do it, you done it. If you could get away with it, you thought you could get away with it, you done it. They wouldn't dare take us back again. It'd be awful. So, I've lived a good life.
Sounds like it.
I've had 2 bad ankles, a new knee, 2 heart attacks last year, and they tell me my heart's darn near perfect.
Sounds like you have too many complaints.
I'm going to live to be 100.
Hope so.
So there you are.
Okay, well, we sure do appreciate it.
Well,